Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. I'm Maya, 33, and my husband ripped the permission slip from my fingers. The paper bent and my stomach dropped with it. I reached again, faster than I meant to. His hand slammed flat on the counter like a stop sign. Don't! His eyes didn't even flick to my face. He stared at the form like it offended him. I laughed once, thin and ugly, then I stopped because it sounded wrong. The kids were in the next room and I heard a chair scrape. I tried to keep my voice low, but it came out sharp. It's for the field trip. My finger landed on the line for a signature. He slid the slip under a stack like he could bury it. That tiny move hit me way harder than it should. He shifted his body so I couldn't reach it. Not dramatic, just deliberate. Like he'd done it before and I'd missed the pattern. I took one step left and he matched me. It was stupid, two adults circling paper, but it felt like a test. "You don't get to sign that," he muttered. He didn't say my name and that somehow made it colder. I stared at him, waiting for the rest. He kept talking like we were discussing groceries. I opened my mouth and nothing came out. You know that blank moment when your brain stalls. I blinked hard like that would fix it. Then I went, "Excuse me." He exhaled like I was exhausting him. "I'm their father." He tapped the form with one knuckle. "This goes through me." I wanted to argue and I also wanted to vanish. I did the thing where you smile to keep the peace. It made my cheeks hurt. I tried to sound reasonable because that's my default. "They asked me to help," I whispered. I held my hands up a little, palms open, like I could prove I wasn't trying to steal anything. His mouth tightened and I knew I'd chosen the wrong words. He glanced toward the hallway, his voice dropped even lower. "Stop trying to be their mom." My throat closed on the spot. I stared at the edge of the counter because if I looked at him, I'd break. The next room went quiet, the kind of quiet that listens. I felt heat rush into my face, fast and humiliating. "I'm not," I started, then I stopped. I was, though. I had been. I'd packed lunches, checked homework, held ice packs, done bedtime stories. I'd done it because it felt right and because nobody else wanted the mess. He leaned in just enough to crowd me. "You're not their real mom," he warned. The word real landed like a slap, clean and practiced. He didn't sound angry, that was the worst part. I swallowed and tried to keep my voice steady. "I'm their stepmom." The word step tasted like compromise. I hated that I sounded like I was begging for a title. He didn't even flinch. He shook his head once, slow. "No," he said, "you're my wife." His hand stayed on the paper like a claim. My stomach turned because I knew he'd rehearsed that line. I heard small feet in the hall, then a pause. I didn't turn around. I couldn't handle a kid's face right then. I stared at the form like it held my dignity inside it. "Can we not do this right now?" I kept my voice soft on purpose. I was trying to save the air in the house. I was trying to protect them from us. He used that softness against me. "Then stop," he snapped, sudden. His hand scooped the slip and folded it once. That fold felt violent even though it was. He shoved it into his pocket and stepped back like the argument was over. I took a breath and forced myself to move. My legs felt heavy like I was walking underwater. I went to the hallway and smiled too wide. My face didn't feel like mine anymore. His son stood there with a backpack half zipped. He looked at me, then past me, checking the temperature. I gave him a thumbs up like everything was normal. My hand shook a little and he noticed. "Are we still going?" he asked, small voice, big eyes. My heart did that painful squeeze thing. I glanced at my husband because I didn't know what I was allowed to answer. He watched me like I was about to make a mistake. I nodded anyway because I'm not proud and I needed the kid calm. "Yeah," I said, "we're going." My husband's jaw flexed once. He didn't correct me, not in front of him. As soon as the kid walked away, my husband angled close again. His voice went flat, no emotion, pure control. "Don't promise them things." He held my gaze like he wanted to pin me in place, and I realized he wasn't just talking about the trip. The car line crawled and my phone buzzed in my lap. I ignored it, then the screen lit up again. I watched the pickup doors like they could distract me. My hands kept tightening on the wheel anyway. The kids spilled out in a rush and my chest loosened. Then his daughter spotted me and sprinted first. She hit my side hard with her backpack and grinned up. "Mom, look what I made," she blurted, already digging for it. I froze for a beat because it felt too good. I lifted my hand toward her hair, then caught myself midair. I heard myself go, "Oh yeah," like I was trying to sound casual. That word still rang in my ears. She shoved a crew empled drawing toward me, proud and breathless. I unfolded it and smiled, real this time. It was messy and sweet, and it had 3 stick figures holding hands. The middle one wore a long dress, and she pointed at it like it mattered. "That's you," she whispered like it was a secret. My throat got tight fast. I wanted to say thank you like an adult. Instead, I just nodded because talking felt risky. A shadow slid between us, and my husband's shoulder blocked her view. He didn't look at me first. His eyes locked on the drawing like it was evidence. His mouth twitched, and I knew exactly what was coming. "Hey," he cut in too bright. He crouched to her level and smiled at her. "That's not Mom, honey." His hand tapped the paper, gentle but firm. "That's Maya." She blinked up at him, confused. Her smile faltered, then tried to come back. "But I meant," she glanced at me like I could fix it. I couldn't move. My husband stood and straightened his jacket. He angled his body to guide her toward the car door. His voice stayed light, like this was normal. "Words matter," he added, still smiling. I climbed out and opened the back door before the kids could trip. His son slid in first and buckled without a word. His daughter climbed in slower, clutching the drawing tight. She kept her eyes down like she'd done something wrong. I wanted to fight right there in the parking lot. I also wanted to swallow the whole moment and disappear. I chose the coward option. I gave her a tiny grin and a thumbs up like a coach. Her shoulders didn't relax. My husband walked around to the driver's side, too calm. He didn't look at me while he got in. He started the engine and adjusted the mirror. It was like he'd just corrected a math problem. Halfway home, his daughter spoke in a small voice. "Can I put my picture on the fridge?" She held it up between the seats, careful now. I turned to answer, then stopped myself. My husband reached back and took it from her. He didn't rip it. That would have been honest. He flattened it on his thigh like he was inspecting it. "We'll see," he murmured and kept his eyes forward. I stared out the window and felt my face burn. You know that feeling when you're trying not to cry and it makes you angrier? I pressed my nails into my palm until it stung. I told myself I was being dramatic. I didn't believe it. At home, he went straight to his phone. His thumbs moved fast, no hesitation. He turned slightly away from me like he was guarding the screen. I pretended to look for a missing shoe and watched anyway. His son asked for a snack and I moved on autopilot. His daughter hovered at my elbow, silent. She kept glancing at her dad like she was checking the rules. I hated that I noticed. My phone buzzed again and I finally checked it. It was a group text from the class parent about the trip. I started typing a quick reply, then stopped. My husband had the permission slip in his pocket and he knew it. That's why he looked so relaxed. Dinner was loud enough to cover my thoughts. The kids argued over turns and I helped without thinking. My husband laughed at something his son did. The laugh sounded real and it made me feel crazy. After the kids washed up, his daughter climbed into my lap for a second. Not long, just enough to test if she still could. I stiffened, then forced my arms around her. She tucked her face into my shoulder like she'd missed me. My husband's gaze landed on us from the doorway. His expression didn't change, but his stare didn't blink. His daughter slid off my lap like she felt the pressure too. She walked away without looking back. I cleaned up in silence, trying to stay useful. My husband's phone sat face down on the counter, too close. It vibrated once, then again, and his hand covered it fast. That motion wasn't casual at all. He went to shower and the phone stayed behind. I told myself not to touch it. I told myself I wasn't that person. Then it buzzed again and the screen flashed a name I knew. Her name. My chest went hollow like someone pulled a plug. I picked up the phone with 2 fingers like it was hot. The preview showed a message cut off mid-sentence. My brain filled in the rest anyway. I shouldn't have opened it. I did. The thread was right there, long and active like a second marriage, and the last line made my vision blur. "Remember," the message read, "she is not their mother." I locked the screen and set it back down too hard. The counter made a sharp click under it. My hands were shaking like I'd had too much caffeine. I stood there listening to the shower run, waiting for my nerve. I wiped my palms on my jeans and walked to the hallway. The kids' voices floated from their rooms, still awake. I forced myself to smile when I passed their doors. My face felt stiff like it belonged to someone else. I helped with the last bedtime stuff on autopilot. One kid asked for water and I brought it fast. The other wanted a second story and I kept it short. My eyes kept slid into the bathroom door anyway. When the house finally quieted, I moved back to the kitchen. The shower shut off and I heard a towel snap. I leaned on the counter and breathed through my nose. My heart beat loud in my ears, steady and ugly. He walked in, rubbing his hair, relaxed like nothing happened. He glanced at me, then at his phone, then back. That tiny check told me everything. I stepped closer to the counter and let my hand hover over the device. "Did you read my messages?" His tone was light, almost teasing. My mouth went dry and I hated that it made me hesitate. I lifted my chin anyway because backing down felt worse. He watched my face like he was measuring damage. "I saw one," I said, and my voice cracked a little. I swallowed and tried again. "From her." He blinked once, slow, like he was bored, then he smirked like I'd proven his point. "So you snooped," he replied, and he reached for the phone. I covered it with my palm before he could grab it. That move shocked me because I'm usually careful. His eyebrows rose like I'd slapped him. "Don't flip it," I snapped. I pointed at the counter right beside my hand. "That message wasn't about schedules." He shifted his weight and crossed his arms like he could outweight me. He tried to step around me, casual. I stepped with him, blocking the path to the hallway. His eyes flicked past my shoulder, checking the kids' doors. That look made my skin crawl because it wasn't care. It was risk management. "Lower your voice," he warned. The warning wasn't for me, it was for his image. I leaned in and kept my voice tight and small, like a secret that could explode. "What is this?" I tapped the screen without unlocking it. "Why is she reminding you I'm not their mother?" My hand was steady now and that scared me. He didn't answer and the silence stretched. He exhaled like I'd asked a dumb question. "Because you push," he muttered. "You push too hard." He waved a hand toward the hallway like the kids were props. "It confuses them." I laughed and it sounded meaner than I meant. "Confuses them?" I shook my head, slow. "They know who takes care of them." His jaw tightened at that and his eyes sharpened. I could tell I'd hit a spot he wanted untouched. He stepped closer, voice low. "They already have a mom," he said. "You're not competing." The way he said competing made it dirty. I felt my face change and he saw it. "I'm not competing," I shot back. "I'm trying to be safe for them." I pointed down the hall. "They come to me first sometimes." His mouth curled like he hated that truth. He leaned his hip against the counter like this was a business talk. "And that's the problem," he replied. "You don't know your lane." He said lane like he was talking to an employee. My chest tightened because he meant it. I reached for the phone and unlocked it. My thumb moved before I could rethink it. I shoved the screen toward him and held it there. "Read it," I demanded, voice still low. "Read what she wrote." His eyes flicked over the line, then away fast. He didn't look surprised. He didn't look guilty either. He just looked irritated like I'd made him late. He held out his hand for the phone. I didn't give it yet. "Answer me first," I said, and my throat stung. "Why does she feel that comfortable saying it?" He stared at my hand like he wanted to pry my fingers open. He gave a short shrug, almost lazy. "Because I told her," he admitted. The words hit me hard, simple and blunt. I waited for him to soften it and he didn't. He let it sit there between us. I blinked fast and felt my eyes sting. "You told her what?" My voice came out small and I hated that too. He looked annoyed now like I was slow. "I promised her," he said, and his fingers finally closed around the phone. He took it from me with a slow pull. "I promised you wouldn't be mom." His voice went flat on the last word like it was a rule. I stared at him, trying to breathe like a normal person. My mouth opened, then shut. It was like my brain refused to accept the sentence. He slipped the phone into his pocket, sealing it away again. "You promised her that?" I repeated, quieter. "While you were marrying me." My hands curled into fists at my sides. He didn't deny it, and that was its own answer. He glanced toward the hallway again, then back at me. "I'm not doing this tonight," he said, and he started to turn away. I stepped into his path, shaking now but upright. He paused and his eyes went cold. I whispered, "So I'm good enough to help." My voice wobbled and I forced it steady, "But I'm not allowed to matter." He didn't respond right away and the quiet felt like a door closing. Then he said, very calm, "You matter to me." He lifted one finger like a lecture, "Not to them in that way." His tone was so controlled it scared me because it sounded practiced. I stood there in the kitchen listening for any movement down the hall. The house stayed still like it was holding its breath too. My hands were new. MB and my skin felt hot, and in that moment I realized he'd been training me one correction at a time. He tried to slide past me and I grabbed his wrist. My fingers closed like a clamp and I hated myself for it. He looked down at my hand, then up at my face. His calm snapped into something sharper, something I'd only seen in flashes. "Don't touch me." He tugged once, not hard, just final. I let go fast like the skin burned. My heart kicked and my voice came out too loud. I forced it down before it carried. "Why did you marry me?" The words fell out raw. I didn't dress them up. I didn't soften the edges. I watched him flinch and it almost made me feel better. He stared for a long second, then glanced toward the kids' doors. That glance wasn't love, it was calculation, and I saw it clearly now. He stepped closer and lowered his voice like a threat. "Not here." He pointed at the ceiling like sound traveled through walls. I nodded once tight and followed him. I felt like I was walking into a trap I already knew. He shut our bedroom door with his foot, slow and controlled. He leaned against it, arms crossed, blocking the exit. The move was casual, but my stomach flipped. I stood near the dresser, too far to bolt fast. "You're acting crazy," he started, and I almost laughed. That word always shows up right on time. I pressed my nails into my thigh and tried to stay grounded. My voice shook anyway because I'm human. "You promised her I'd never be mom." I kept it low, but it still felt like shouting. "So tell me why you wanted me here." He blinked once, slow, like he was picking a safe answer. "I wanted a partner," he replied, and his mouth twitched. "I wanted a stable home." He spread his hands like it was reasonable. It sounded like a brochure and it made my throat tighten. I took one step toward him, then stopped. "A partner," I repeated, and my tone went bitter. "Or a helper you can manage." His eyes narrowed and his jaw set. I knew I'd hit the real nerve. He pushed off the door and paced 2 steps. "You knew what this was," he shot back. "You knew they had a mother." He jabbed a finger toward the hallway like the kids were a legal point. My chest burned because he was rewriting the deal in real time. "I knew," I whispered, and my voice cracked again. "I also knew they were kids." I spread my hands in frustration. "Kids attached to who shows up." He didn't answer that because he couldn't. He stopped pacing and stared at me. "That's exactly why you need to stop," he snapped. "You encourage it." He made it sound like I was training a dog. I felt my face twist and I couldn't hide it. I shook my head slow like I was trying to reset my brain. "Encourage it?" I scoffed under my breath. "I'm not handing out trophies for calling me anything." He lifted his chin, offended, and I almost rolled my eyes. "You like it," he accused, voice flat. "You like being needed." The accusation landed hard because part of it stung true. I did like being needed, and that shame made me angry. "Of course I like it," I hissed. "I'm not a robot." I took another step closer, then stopped again. "But you're the one who asks me to do everything." He stared at me like I'd broken a rule. He held up a hand, palm out. "I ask you to help," he corrected. "I don't ask you to replace anyone." The word replace dripped with contempt. My stomach turned because he wanted me small. I felt my eyes get hot and I blinked hard. "Then why punish me for caring?" My voice went thin and I hated that weakness. I tried to breathe slow, but it wouldn't slow. His expression stayed steady like he'd practiced this. "Because caring turns into claiming," he said. "And I won't allow that." He said allow like he owned the air in the room. I stood there stunned because he wasn't even pretending anymore. I stepped back and hit the edge of the bed with my knee. The small pain grounded me, thank God. "You won't allow it," I repeated, and my laugh came out sharp. "Listen to yourself." He didn't react because he liked the power. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He tapped the screen twice, calm as ever, then he angled it toward me like he was presenting proof. My skin crawled before I even read it. A text sat there from his ex, short and smug. "Keep her in her place." That was it. No hello, no question, just a command. My hands went cold because he'd let her talk about me like that. "You show me this like it helps?" My voice rose and I pulled it back down. "You let her speak to you like you're her employee." He shrugged like it was normal. That shrug did more damage than any shout. "It keeps the peace," he replied. "It keeps court out of our lives." The word court dropped like a weight. My pulse jumped because now I heard the real leash. He watched my reaction and leaned into it. "There it is," I said, and my voice went quieter. "You're scared." I pointed at his phone, then at his chest. "You're not protecting them from me." His eye flashed and I knew I'd pushed too far. He stepped in close, too close. "Don't psychoanalyze me," he warned. His voice stayed low, but it had an edge now. I held my ground even though my knees wanted to fold. "Then explain," I fired back. "Explain why she gets to set rules in my house." I regretted the word house the second it left me. His smile flickered and I saw the contempt again. "Because they're her kids," he said, clipped, "and they're mine." He tapped his own chest twice. "You're the extra." The word extra felt like a slap across my mouth. I stared at him, trying to process that cruelty. "Extra," I repeated, and my voice went flat. "So I'm just what?" I waved a hand, searching for a term. He didn't help because he didn't need to. "You're my wife," he answered like it was generous. "That should be enough." The phrase "should be enough" made my stomach twist. It sounded like a threat wearing manners. I took a breath and tried a different angle. "We need counseling," I said, fast and blunt. "Like real counseling with a third person." I didn't let my voice shake on the word need. He stared at me like I'd suggested joining a cult. He barked a laugh, short and cruel. It wasn't even amused. It was dismissive, like he was swatting a fly. My face went hot again and I felt stupid for hoping. "Therapy?" He shook his head, still smiling. "So you can get validated?" He mimed quotation marks with two fingers, mocking. I wanted to throw something, and I hate that about myself. "It's not about validation," I snapped. "It's about not damaging the kids." I watched his eyes harden at the word kids. He hated when I used them as a reason because it gave me moral ground. He moved to take that away. "Don't use them," he warned, and his voice turned icy. "They're not your leverage." I stared at him because I hadn't even thought of it that way. Then I realized he had, and that was the difference. "You think I'm manipulating them," I said, incredulous. "I'm the one reading bedtime stories." I caught myself because I was listing proof like a resume. That made me feel smaller and it made him look bigger. He saw it too. He tilted his head like he'd won. "You do those things because you want to," he replied, "not because anyone asked you." The gaslighting was neat and clean. I felt my brain wobble for a second. "I get asked," I pushed back, voice tight. "They ask." I pointed toward the door, shaking now. "They come to me when they're scared." His eyes narrowed and I saw jealousy there, not romantic jealousy, controlled jealousy. "They shouldn't," he said, firm. "They should come to me." He thumped his chest with his fist once like a man in charge. The arrogance made my stomach flip. I realized he wanted to be their only safe place. "You're not always here," I shot back. "You're not always available." I heard myself and flinched because it sounded like an attack. It was an attack. His face went still like stone. He stepped back and pointed at the door handle. "If you keep doing this," he started, voice steady, "you're going to force me to make changes." He didn't say what changes. He didn't need to. My mouth went dry. "What changes?" I made it a statement, not a question. He stared at me long enough to make my skin itch. Then he finally moved, slow, like a teacher. "I can set boundaries," he replied. "I can limit your involvement." He said involvement like a switch he could flip. My stomach dropped because he meant it. He'd been building toward that power. "You can't just cut me off," I whispered. "They'll notice." I pictured their faces, confused and hurt. The thought made my chest ache. He watched me ache and stayed unmoved. "They'll adapt," he said, shrugging. "Kids do." That line was so cold I felt dizzy. I realized he could hurt them to punish me and he'd call it structure. I took a step back, needing air. My heel hit a shoe and it scraped loud on the floor. The sound carried and we both froze. I held my breath and listened. A soft creak came from the hallway, a small shadow slipped past the crack under our door. My whole body went rigid because I knew one of them was out there. He noticed too and his eyes went hard. He opened the door fast and looked out. "Go back to bed," he ordered, voice sharp. A tiny whimper answered, then quick footsteps retreated. He shut the door again and turned to me like nothing happened. My stomach twisted in disgust. "That's what you want," I whispered. "Fear." He didn't deny it, he just looked annoyed I'd named it. "I want order," he replied, and his voice stayed even. "I want them clear on who's who." He walked closer again, crowding my space. I held still because moving felt unsafe. Who? I repeated, voice thin. "So where am I exactly?" I watched his eyes, searching for any softness. He didn't give me any, he gave me policy. "You're not their mom," he said, calm and final. "Stop trying." He watched my face crumble and he didn't blink, then he went lower like he intended to stick forever. "You'll never be their real mom," he added slow. The word never echoed in my head like a bell. I stood there shaking because I finally understood his whole plan. I didn't scream, I didn't throw anything. I just stared at him, breathing shallow, trying not to fall apart. He looked relieved, like the truth had fixed the problem, and in that quiet moment I started thinking about leaving seriously. I pulled my suitcase from the closet and unzipped it hard. The sound felt louder than it should. My husband stood in the doorway, arms folded, watching. His stare said he expected me to blink first. "Seriously?" He tilted his head like I was performing. I kept my eyes on the drawer and yanked it open. My fingers moved fast, almost clumsy. I could feel him smiling behind me. I grabbed only what I could carry without thinking. Shirts, jeans, the boring basics that meant freedom. I skipped anything that would slow me down. My hands shook anyway and I hated that he could see it. He stepped inside and leaned on the dresser, casual. "You're going to traumatize them," he warned, voice low. That word hit like a punch because it sounded like concern. I didn't answer because he didn't deserve my words. I slammed the drawer shut and finally faced him. "You already did that," I whispered. My throat felt raw like I'd swallowed sand. His eyebrows rose and his mouth curved in that fake calm. "Don't start with the martyr thing," he snapped. He pushed off the dresser and came closer. I shifted my stance without thinking, feet planted like I expected a shove. The fact I expected it scared me. He glanced toward the hallway and lowered his tone. "You're not leaving tonight," he said. The certainty in his voice made my skin prickle. I zipped the suitcase and lifted it anyway. My arms strained and I refused to show it. "Move," I told him, quiet and firm. He let out a small laugh like I'd told a joke. Then he stepped sideways and blocked the door with his body, not aggressive, just absolute. "You're being dramatic," he said, and he held up his hands. "Put it down and breathe." He spoke like he was calming a child. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. I moved toward the door with the suitcase angled ahead. He stayed planted, forcing me to stop short. I could smell his shampoo and it made my stomach flip. I hated that my body still registered him as familiar. "Don't do this," he murmured and his eyes narrowed. "Think about the kids." He used them like a shield, like always. I stared at him and felt something inside me go flat. "I am thinking about them," I said. My voice trembled and I pushed through it. "That's why I can't stay." His nostrils flared and the calm slipped for half a second. He reached for the suitcase handle, slow and controlled. I jerked it back and the wheels bumped his shoe. His eyes flashed, then cooled again. He was resetting his mask in real time. "Give me that," he ordered like it was his. I gripped harder and shook my head once. "No," the word came out sharp and it surprised both of us. A small sound came from the hall like a foot on carpet. My head snapped toward the door before I could stop it. He followed my gaze and his face tightened. Someone was listening again. He opened the bedroom door fast and looked out. "Go to bed," he called, voice clipped. Silence answered, then a soft retreat. He shut the door and turned back to me, eyes cold. "You see," he hissed, "you're scaring them." The accusation was so backwards I almost laughed. My hands started to tingle like my body wanted to fight or run. I chose run because I'm not built for war. I set the suitcase down and grabbed my keys from the nightstand. That move changed his expression. He watched the keys like they were a weapon, his shoulders rose a little ready. "You're not taking the car," he said, and he stepped closer. I held the keys up between us, a small piece of metal with too much meaning. "It's mine too," I shot back. He stared at me like I'd stolen oxygen. "Stop," he warned, and his voice went low. "Don't make me do something." He didn't say what something was. The threat hung there anyway, heavy and vague. I swallowed hard because vague threats are the ones that work. I walked to the door with the keys in my fist. He lunged, not full speed but fast enough. His hand grabbed my forearm, fingers tight, pain flared and my breath hitched. I looked down at his grip, then back up at his face. "Let go," I said, and my voice was steadier than I felt. He held on for one long second, eyes locked on mine, then he released like he was doing me a favor. "Fine," he muttered, and he stepped aside. "Go cool off." The way he said cool off made me want to scream. I didn't scream because that would feed him. I slid the door open and stepped into the hallway. The air felt different out there, like I could breathe again. A bedroom door across the hall cracked open an inch. A small face peeked out, wide-eyed. His son whispered M. "Why name?" Barely audible, my chest squeezed so tight I almost dropped the keys. I lifted a finger to my lips, not to hush him, just to protect him. He stared at me like he was trying to memorize me. My husband appeared behind me, too close, too sudden. "Back to bed," he barked toward the cracked door. The door shut fast and I flinched at the speed. I hated him for making the kid hide. I bent to lift the suitcase again and my hands fumbled. My husband scooped it up first, quick and smooth. For 1 second I thought he was helping and I felt stupid for it. Then he carried it the opposite way back into the bedroom. "No," I snapped, and I followed him in 2 strides. He set it down by the closet like he was putting away clutter. He turned to face me and spread his hands, calm again. The switch in him made my skin crawl. "You're not taking that," he said like it was settled. I stepped forward and grabbed the handle. He put his foot on the wheel and stopped it. We stared at each other, both breathing hard. "What is wrong with you?" I whispered, and my voice cracked. "Why are you fighting me like this?" His eyes flicked to the phone in his pocket, then back to me. That tiny motion told me he wasn't alone in this room. He pulled his phone out and held it up. His screen was already open to a message window. He didn't type yet, but his thumb hovered. It was a silent threat with a glowing screen. "You walk out," he said, voice steady, "and she hears about it first." The meaning landed instantly. He meant his ex, not the kids. My stomach turned and my hands went cold again. I swallowed and forced myself to nod like I understood. "Great," I said, and my voice went flat. "Tell her whatever you want." I yanked the suitcase handle hard and the wheel jumped his foot. He hissed and pulled back, surprised. I rolled the suitcase into the hallway and didn't look behind me. My legs felt shaky, but they moved. The front door was only a few steps away and it felt miles. My husband followed close, silent now, like a predator choosing timing. At the door, he finally spoke again. "You'll regret this," he warned, and his voice was almost gentle. I paused with my hand on the knob and stared at the wood grain. Part of me wanted to beg for kindness, and I hated that part. I turned my head just enough to see him. "What I regret," I said slowly, "is believing you wanted a family." His face tightened like I'd slapped him in public. For the first time all night, he looked rattled. That look gave me a sick kind of clarity. A small knock came from the hallway behind him. His daughter's voice floated out, soft and sleepy. "Are you both mad at me?" The question sliced right through me, clean and brutal. My husband didn't answer her right away. He stood there, deciding what story to tell. I stepped around him before he could block me again. I crouched down in the hallway, keeping my voice low. "Hey," I whispered toward her door, "no one is mad at you." My throat burned and I tried to smile anyway. "You didn't do anything wrong." Her door opened a bit more and I saw her small hand clutching the edge. My husband's voice cut in from above me. "Go to bed." 2 words, sharp and final. The door closed again and I heard a tiny sniff. I froze in a crouch, fists clenched, jaw shaking. I stood up fast because staying would break me. I grabbed the suitcase handle and pulled the front door open. Cold air hit my face and I sucked in a breath like I'd been underwater. My husband stepped into the doorway behind me, blocking the frame like a wall. Last chance, he said, tone calm. Drop the act and come inside. I stared at him and realized he truly believed I was acting. That realization made me feel sick and strangely free. I rolled the suitcase over the threshold and stepped out. Behind me, he didn't follow. He just stood there, watching, phone in hand, already typing. And from the hallway, I heard a small voice whisper, "Mom," then stop mid-word.